Today we're exploring how AI enhances real-world experiences with Stefan Herrebosch, our client partner at Fight Club, and Rory Flynn, founder of Systematic AI and AI strategist from New York. Through the lens of Whirlpool's La Vaisselle campaign, they'll discuss how artificial intelligence can actually help create more authentic, memorable brand moments. Let's hear from Stefan and Rory.
So welcome, Rory. I'm very much looking forward to today's podcast. To give a little bit of setting the scene for everyone. So the podcast today is about designing authentic experiences in the age of intelligence. It is about why real human moments matter more and more than ever in marketing. So I'm actually very much looking forward to start with this podcast, maybe to tell a little bit more about what is an authentic experience within Fight Club, and then give a little bit of a case as a starting hook, and totally listen to your experience and insights.
Let's do it.
Let's kick off. So maybe let's tell a little bit more about authentic experiences, because of course it's a term, but within Fight Club it's a business unit. So we have a business unit that is called Authentic Experiences, and there was a moment where there was no such thing as authentic experiences within Fight Club. Now there is. So for us, there was at a given point a bit of a vision, a feeling. And that feeling was that in a world that is getting more and more filled with technology and with AI, reality wins. So that's why we introduced and created authentic experiences as a business unit. It's Fight Club's way of turning real-world moments, as we call them, into measurable growth. So it's about building festival activations, about trade shows, booths, B2B, VIP formats, retail pop-ups, the things we all know. And they all have three things in common. Just want to start with those because they might be relevant later on. It's about physical immersion. It's about creating unique content. And in the end, delivering measurable impact.
Mm-hmm.
Internally, we also dare to say screens don't sweat, people do. So
Fair.
It's a very
Good point.
fair thing to say. I also feel it right now. The podcast studio is pretty warm, so I'm also sweating. The screens aren't. So indeed, for us, what makes the authentic experience a bit different is how we look at it and how we look at the end-to-end stack. I think there might be some interesting things we might talk about later. It's about the phase of conceptualization and spatial design. Then on the moment itself, it's about live engagement mechanics, let's say gamification, challenges, sampling, all these things. And then on site itself, also being able to create content fast. So
Totally.
Fast content, so afterwards we can distribute it. So that's for us authentic experiences. For jumping then into the real questions, I just wanted to give one case as an example that maybe might be relevant to discuss and to see from your point of view, how could AI even improve it, and so on and so forth. So we had a very interesting case. It's called La Vaisselle. It is linked to a dishwasher. We got a question from a company that produces quite a lot of things, but one of the things they produce is dishwashers. So one could say, okay, it's an everyday household product, but we got really carte blanche, as they say, which means we got a blank canvas to really reflect upon a potential concept on how we could turn this everyday innovation into some kind of a sensory cultural experience. So what did we do? We of course conceptualized, and then we came up with something called La Vaisselle, which was a one-night restaurant. And the dishes at that moment were not just washed with the dishwasher, they were cooked in the dishwasher.
Okay.
So for us, that was we found a hook. We tried to conceptualize something. We were trying to find some kind of a human truth, a cultural truth. Everyone is liking things that are related to cooking. Who hasn't received a cookbook when they had a birthday or Christmas? So that was the thing where we built everything around. So indeed, inviting a chef and so on and so forth, handling everything. Big fast forward. It created quite some buzz. We created around 200 content pieces, and we had around 7 million reach in Belgium.
Outstanding.
Which is a lot. So for us, it was a bit of an overview of this is what authentic experience is about. It's finding a concept, it's creating that concept on the moment itself, trying to capture and steer emotion, and then afterwards using the content. But now, of course, coming to the topic of today, and that's really about how artificial intelligence can not only just measure or analyze authenticity, but also help conceptualize it, referring to one of the phases, maybe even doing more on the product itself. So maybe let's start with the first question, if that's okay. Can AI for you spark more authentic ideas, or does it actually risk making everything feeling more artificial?
It's a great question. I think, at the end of the day, when I think about AI from a concepting standpoint, it's never what I use AI for 100% of concepting. It might be a way for me to just siphon through ideas. A lot of times AI has like a 20% of like a great idea. Like sometimes they'll say one word. Like if you're asking me for, here's what I'm doing for this project, and I need 10 ideas, and it gives you 10 ideas. Maybe like 2 words in that entire 10 ideas or something that sparks your creation in different directions. So I think, from a concepting standpoint, unless you have it really dialed in and it can somehow understand human experiences, which I don't think it can, to me, it's more so of just like a thought starter. But in this case, there's a lot of different ways to utilize it, not just as a concepting tool, but as a way to bring some things to life that are from the human mind. Like I think once the idea of, cooking the meal within the dishwasher is exceptional. Like sous vide, like something within a dishwasher. Like, hey, I can't do that, but it could come up with maybe something potentially outside of that. Where is there a way to make like a digital tie-in to an application? Because now we can build an app for on-site application like very quickly. Like it doesn't have to be a 6-month process. Like that can be vibe coded, a month before the event, and make sure that it's running, and that can be a takeaway too for everyone at the event as well. I know that's probably some of the things that we're doing is thinking about that as in the experiential space. Also, you want to have not only the memory takeaway, but a lot of times something tangible to take away also. But I think that's definitely important, and that's why I love the experiential space. It's just it lasts. Once you're there and it works, and it really works, so you don't forget that. So
super clear. I think if jumping a bit back, or using the case itself, I would be indeed very curious as well to hear maybe how you would have used AI. For me, giving a little bit of a starter, we always say that human emotion defines the direction. So it means indeed trying to understand what the brand is all about, and understanding human psychology and so on and so forth. But AI widens the horizon of maybe seeing concepts and ideas that you yourself, in the time frame that you have, wouldn't have come up with yourself. So maybe in this specific case, for example, imagining that the question would be given and you would be in the room as well to define a concept maybe, or to be present at location and to use AI. Are there some first reflections from your points how you would enable the possibilities of AI to even boost a potential concept like this and make it even better?
Totally. I think like looking, from an AI standpoint of what it can do really well is like simulate in terms of reactions and sort of emotion, right? So if you wanted to have it run from, like, to me, the way I think about this, and maybe that's different than everyone else does, I might run that concept through, I might create a couple different sort of personas that would be, potential attendees of the event, like sort of fill in like cultural, historical background from, basically simulated styles, and have them all react to like the idea and see how they all sort of react in that way. There might be some ways that I wasn't expecting, in terms of like negative reaction to certain things, or, this might tie back to XYZ, or this could be really beneficial for this type of person. Then again, it comes down to how well you already know the customer base that you're trying to activate for. So that would be one thing that I would always sort of look at because I think there's a lot of times that I've done, when I've worked on the experiential side, which isn't that much, but you always know there's something that you're not thinking of, right? It's like there's always some sort of like, oh, this is a really cool idea, but if we should get these, moldable, these chocolate molds or something, but it might be 26, 27 degrees outside and they might melt. Like those kind of like little factors that can sometimes come up when you're so focused on executing that sometimes like the micro factors or like the risks associated with it too can be like not overlooked, but just not top of mind. So
Clear.
like there's always little way, like I use it to me, like risk mitigation or thinking of, different downside factors to me is always a great point to look at, because I want to be positive that everything's going to work out all the time. I need a skeptic with me at all times, which it can be, right? So if you're the skeptic, you might need a positive person all the time, being the optimist, right? So think about it as like a place to fill in the gaps of what we already are self-aware of. But I mean, that's a super intrinsic answer, but I think there's outside of that, really like putting it together visually. Like I like to see things visually. I want to experience it visually before I experience it in person. So, being able to build in a space and edit in a space and play within a space and almost build a little world for myself, which is what you guys are doing most of the time.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So it's like you can do that right now in a very effective way. So that can either, help sales or help your concepting process or even help the ideation process. So there's so much. There's so much.
There's so much. It was a very extended answer. I am going to jump back to something that you mentioned in the beginning of your answer. You mentioned that indeed it might be super relevant to use it to give insights on the persona, and then based on the persona to indeed come up with relevant ideas and concepts. Imagine that people might be listening today and they have a feeling of, okay, this is super interesting, but in all honesty, we are lacking some insights even on the persona level. Do you see some options as well there, how AI could be used and enabled to even help to fill in that gap?
Totally. I think a lot of times you can analyze a persona based on what data you already have. So if you're looking at the way a brand positions itself, even from its external sort of, external positioning in terms of its visuals, its social media presence, its website, that's a way to sort of judge they're putting out externally what they want to attract internally, right? So if you can analyze that and sort of develop, let's call it like a suite of personas that might be attracted to the brand based on what they're already putting out, that all then comes down to the brand itself then as well. So if they're putting out something that's maybe not the same people they want to attract, that might be a more of a brand issue than a persona issue. But it's just a way of thinking of like all the different ways that you can gain insights from all the things that are already available without having that data. You can oftentimes analyze the review section of, if a brand has a product that's on Amazon, if that's on an e-commerce site, you can take a lot of that review data and sort of like sentiment analysis and things like that, figure out sort of where people are, what they ask the most questions about, what they like the most. It's all data at the end of the day. It's all how we take it and use it. So there's no one way, 2 ways, 3 ways, 4 ways. There's like 100 different ways to kind of attack it. But I've always found that at the end of the day, we're talking to a customer in some way, shape, or form, right? So it's like if we understand the customer, what they like, what they're into, what they might react negatively to, then we can build something at least that's a little bit more on point. So that could be a whole podcast in and of itself.
Actually, there's so much more data that could be used that maybe most of the people are not aware of, that it could be leveraged and could be used, but there is so much. So there's always a starting point and data that can be used as an input.
We have so much we don't even know what to do with it, right? Like we don't even know that it is data at this point, right? Like you just start to find it everywhere, and when you can utilize it, you can utilize it.
Yeah, it's very clear. So indeed, we have the persona question. I think this one is super clear and answered. I'm wondering as well if there are some techniques and tips and tricks that you could use that when you are using AI to come up with concepts and ideas, that it are ideas that in a way make sense, that they don't feel like this is maybe a cliche answer or this is too far-fetched. Is there a way to, frame the types of answers and replies that you would like to receive so you can optimize the outcome of...
Typically. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to go about it. But oftentimes I try to go, if you think about how, if you're not really providing an exceptional amount of detail when you're asking these tools, they're going to give you sort of like the lowest common denominator of an answer. It's not going to be something super creative because you said be super creative, right? It's not going to be that way. So oftentimes I try to break its thought patterns. Whereas I'd say, like, if I was a if I was a brand coming to you and asking you to, or if I was a brand coming to you, you're an agency, and saying, like, let's create some ideas for, brand activation. Say, tell me exactly the opposite of what you think we should do. So then it might give me like these really radical sort of ideas, which either one are either good because it's sort of like out of left field and it's not like the standard answer. I'm not saying use those, everyone. I'm just saying, like, that might be the idea starters, then branch off of, because a lot of times I like to break the pattern. Like, not everyone is asking AI to think of the opposite or think of the worst or think of, like, things that would be sort of, shock value or whatnot. Because you can then also take that and then go, what's the positive side of this? And then it's like, once you have the opposite, you can go, what's the positive side, like flip side of this? And then you might have a really good idea. So I think oftentimes just taking the road less traveled with AI, then, asking it to do things that maybe you wouldn't do or haven't thought about, because it's gonna give you an answer. It's like how much of that answer do you want to be generic and how much do you want it to be like somewhat unique?
Clear. I'm not asking you to think like an AI now, but I was wondering, imagine that we would give inputs on, let's say, use persona of Whirlpool, of the dishwasher case, and that we would feed it into the system. Do you have an idea how AI might reason, that it would be in a different way reasoning than a human being would?
It's going to be analytical, right? Unless you tell it to act otherwise. So, a lot of times you can tell AI to act as a persona. Like, you can tell it to act as, if it's just using like a C-suite as an example, if you tell it to act as a CFO, it's going to definitely act different than a CMO. Like, a CFO might be more by the numbers, practical, straight by the book, conservative in that sense. CMO might be more like optimistic, positive, idea generation. Like, you think about sort of the personality types that fit those roles also and how they think. So, setting the tone in terms of like who it is, when you're talking to an LLM or something of those, giving it like a specific role so it can act in a specific way, that's probably going to give you a different answer majority of the time. So I think, it's oftentimes just, again, we're always talking about the audience and who's actually doing the thinking then too. Like, if we're even treating the LLM like a customer in that sense, or it's just always need to put, them in a different position to succeed rather than just ask, give me 5 ideas. Because then you're getting that same 5 ideas that probably every other agency is asking to every, all over the world, because no one's really going much deeper than that. But the context is important because you need to limit the knowledge base, right? This sounds crazy. This is technical, but from a reasoning standpoint, if you were to just say, give me 5 ideas, right? Like, I think ChatGPT, this is going to be wrong, but it has like 9 trillion parameters in there or something like that. So it's got to go through its whole network of information and find what it's looking for. But because you didn't limit the sort of parameters at all, it's just going to go try to find everything. So you're going to get something super generic. But if you've given it context in terms of, who your personas are, what they like to buy, what products are purchased the most, what products have the highest rating, the biggest, the best feedback, why is it the best feedback? Like, if you have all that additional context, that's going to make your answer way more tailored than something that's just like, please give me 5 ideas. So
super clear.
Yeah.
Super clear. We have been indeed talking a bit now about this Whirlpool case. Are there, from your sides, any cases or, let's say, examples that you indeed have come across already when technology was used to enable conceptualization?
Yeah, there was a few that I've been a part of. Not allowed to actually say them, though, unfortunately. But the idea was sort of marrying the digital with the real life space. So it was a lot more on the like, how do we create a virtual experience in person from, taking like the real experiential side of the human side of it, but then marrying it with something in the digital side as like a takeaway, like where it was, we were building custom apps or things like that, where you could have something that was tied to the event happen in digital as well. And that was like the takeaway. That was the shareable moment. That was like the social sort of vehicle into social media. But I personally, like I've always felt in the sales process, it's massive. Being able to use AI to sort of bring the vision to life, because what you're trying to do in that sales process too is immerse your client, right? Like immerse a potential client or immerse your current client in that world and make them feel what you want them to feel, or at least get a taste of it. Because if you can sell in an idea like that and you can actually execute it, then to me, it's a way. I don't knock the 3D renders, but sometimes you see like a 3D render of so you just don't feel it. It's just like, oh, looks like a video game. Like I can kind of get it, but I can't really get it. So sometimes being able to build like that immersive sort of sense of, being inside of an event can be really awesome. And I think that's, to me, being able to pitch a little bit with a little bit more of an arsenal behind me, that feels a little bit better too.
Super interesting, because indeed now we're coming a bit more into the concept. Well, let's say we are in the moment of the live event itself, and even at that moment itself, we can also use AI and everything what's related to it to create actually that experience that resonates and that creates an emotion. For us, indeed, that's why we really believe in that authentic experience concept, because we believe, and it's a truth, that emotion is at the core. It's a core driver of attention, memory, and decision making. That's proven by neuroscience. So indeed, if there's not such a thing as a brand that is making us feel anything, it's absolutely not likely, or much less likely, that it will drive to action and to loyalty. Is there a way that this, let's say, emotional relevant layer, that it can indeed be, that we are ensured that when we are using LLMs, that also this emotional element is part of the answer that's coming back?
It's tough. Like I really haven't. I've seen the LLMs act with something that could be, or copyright in a way that could be emotional. I don't know how really emotional they can be when they've been programmed sort of not to be emotional, right? And or I don't know, that might change in a couple of months, and we might be dealing with like real humans that are back there. But I'd say it's just really hard to admit. This is why I think that experiential is so important moving forward, because we're all going to like feel as we're just going to keep moving more digital, and like we're still going to crave more connection and human connection. Even like the difference between me being here this week versus me being on a Zoom call every day. Like I feel a lot more in the environment. I feel like I can help a lot more because I'm here. And it's like you have a different level of connection with people. You get to talk to them one-on-one. Like I feel like that'll have a more lasting impression. But it's really hard to say like I watched a concert on YouTube and like I got the same feeling from being at that concert live, right? Like it's not there yet, unless we sort of immerse into fully 4D worlds with sensory experiences and actual, connection that's around us, which might be coming.
which will be coming, for sure.
That might be coming relatively soon. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's still up to us. Like we know what humans like. We all kind of like a lot of the same things. As weird as that sounds, we're pretty open to fun and engagement and things like that. I just don't know if the AI can ever mimic that or understand that at this moment. But that's always subject to change.
Clear. It's for us as well about finding that right balance.
Yeah.
Between when do you use a technology? Don't just, of course, trust the process blindly, because that's not making any sense. For, let's say, everyone who would like to start using it a little bit more, especially teams, because most of the time it's not just one person coming up with a concept. It might be that it's at an agency, for example, someone, of course, who has a deeper relationship and understands the account and the brand. But then, of course, when they come back, it's a team actually that's coming up with a concept that makes sense and which can be then translated into a complete production. Do you have any tips how a team can start using it more? Because maybe this is indeed a little bit more complex than just one person.
It is. I think like everyone is like it's an amplification of everyone's own skill set, right? So I think if you have people that are more creative from an idea standpoint, some that are more creative from an operational standpoint, some that are more creative from like a risk standpoint, think like sort of it's a way to amplify each one of those and sort of marry the skill sets together. Personally, like I really think at the end of the day, it's still so human driven. Like the experiential side, it's one of those like unicorn areas where I feel like the ideas typically are so creative, and the tying of the idea to the event, to the customer, to the emotion is so complex that when it works, like it really works. And there's a lot of different levels that go into that, which I think is why you still need a whole team, you know, operating in the same way that they're doing, just amplifying themselves a little bit more. And you know, that might provide different avenues and different sort of you know, ideas that come out of it using the tools. But I still think the core concepts that humans are able to develop, you know, whether that's utilizing AI for 10% of it or 70% of it, it still comes back to us. And I think that's, you know, for teams, I don't have a really great answer other than sort of how we've talked about it here. I still think it just comes down to having a great team. I still think that's like the end of the day, what it is, and the right team, and the team that understands your brand, and a team that understands your clients. So
yeah. And I think it still confirms as well that luckily us as human beings, there's still a reason why we are here.
We're relevant.
We are relevant.
Still in it.
And of course, we will still stay relevant as long as possible. So without us, indeed, if you don't have anyone who is giving the inputs to the system, then there won't come out some kind of a useful output. You are here for a week in our agency as well. So super welcoming you here in the agency. But I'm curious as well, how do you see AI changing the way agencies approach experience design? Do you have any, let's say, vision on how actually it will shape the future of how agencies are going to approach this in the upcoming months?
Definitely. I mean, look, agency's gonna change radically. Not in a bad way, just in the way that we execute things. I think that's how it is. There's like think about this all the time, is that the execution is just getting a little bit easier, not necessarily in the physical space, but just execution of ideas. Why do we hire agencies? Because they have great ideas. Like, as long as the ideas are flowing, right? I think, you know, it's just a different way of thinking about going about things. We've had these systems and these processes for a long time. They've all relatively been the same. So I think operationally is where you're going to see the biggest shift. And in terms of timing, things are probably going to move a lot faster. Probably going to be able to do more than we could. I don't think that means we're going to do less. I think we're probably just going to do more in the time that we already have.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think operationally is probably looking forward where things are going and where you're going to see the most structural changes in the software that we use, how information gets passed, how, you know, things move from stage to stage. Probably going to be a little bit smoother. I'm looking forward to that, you know, at some point. But yeah, I think still, this is the one area, like if there was one person I was going to talk to at your agency, I was going to say the one area that's probably going to be mostly touched internally, but like not have as much of an effect externally based on like the usage of the tools is probably experiential, because still think at the end of the day, it's too human for AI to handle. It's too legit and too real for AI to handle. So maybe I'm just being short-sighted there, but I hope that's what everyone else is thinking, because I don't want to be in a world that robots are creating experiences for me, and then you get there and it's just like, this is cold and dead. You know,
that's the answer. Indeed, we also hoped a bit that we would be hearing of someone who has so much expertise in the topic. It's the reason as well why we believe in the authentic experience story. And indeed, we see AI as an enabler, but not as a replacer. So that's absolutely. I'm happy to hear that you're sharing that opinion. Maybe indeed a final question as well to round off the questions and the discussion today. A bit of a practical question. We always try to end with something practical. So if there would be one thing that, in your opinion, creatives in general, creatives in agencies could start doing more today to use AI as a thought partner or as an enabler, and not just as a tool, is there anything indeed that comes to mind that you say, okay, from a day-to-day perspective, maybe it's a good thing if you're not using it yet to start using it this way.
Play.
Play.
I use the analogy of like if anyone's ever played sports before, like a lot of times growing up as kids, you play with your friends. You do all the things that you can't do in a real game because you're just having fun. You're playing around. You do, playing basketball, you're doing behind the back passes, whatever. But that might at one point show itself during a real game that you might have to do something like that, right? So to me, the playing is like there's no consequences. There's no sort of restrictions. You can go and do what you want to do, create how you want to create. You oftentimes find way more uses and way more things when you want to actually make something yourself than when it is for someone else. But that has applicable skills. So it's once you figure it out one time for yourself, then it's like, okay, I can go use this. I can probably use this for a client, or I can use this in a different scenario. But I always say, just if you're playing around creating stuff that you want to create, knowing that we've never had an infinite canvas like this before to all be creators, with the access in our hands, just go have fun. Let's play around.
I think that's a perfect way to end the podcast. So just play around and let's have fun. I think that's some kind of an activity that everyone is looking forward to doing, me, myself as well. So I really want to thank you for your time today and sharing your opinions. Super happy to hear as well that we as human beings definitely still have some relevance and that we're good. Thank you as well for all the information that you have been sharing as well already with Fight Club in the upcoming and in the past days. So really want to thank you for that, and looking forward to follow you as well and see what you're up to in the future. So thank you.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that's facts. If you take one thing from this conversation, let it be this. You don't need to be the biggest player in the market to outsmart and outperform. If you're ready to stop playing by the giants' rules and start writing your own, we're here to help. Visit us at fightclubagency.com/pact to get packed with the full show's notes and download our one-page strategy blueprint. Or follow us at Fight Club Agency on Instagram for our daily tips and tricks. Until next time, for new insights on how to outsmart and outperform.